So Gary, you're at SMC. Tell me about what SMC is. What do you folks do there? What's the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the CEO of SMC National. We're a digital marketing company for dentists. One of the most exciting things, I know there's a lot of kids out there listening right now that are saying, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a dental marketer.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's we do dental marketing. It's a crowded space. There's lots of dental marketing people out there.
Okay.
We didn't start that way. We didn't start as a dental marketing company. It was something that kind of happened over time. And one thing that I have learned, I have a lot of podcasts that I do inside the dental industry, and I interview a lot of people who are in the dental industry, including dentists and other clinicians that are in the industry. Is that the doctors and the hygienists and those kind of people that go to school, they're in the dental industry on purpose. Almost everybody else is in the dental industry on accident, and
Mm.
it's kind of something that they stumble into. And that's definitely what happened to me. And yeah, that's a little bit about the company.
That's really cool. And so you've obviously, like you said, tripped and fell into this. Did you go to school for marketing? Were you always a marketer? How did you get involved in marketing as a profession?
Yeah, no, definitely didn't go to school. I'm not a big fan of school, especially for like marketing skills. I wouldn't recommend going to school to learn about marketing. What I did is 2008, I quit my job. I had a decent job. I just hated it though. It was super boring. And I just, every year or so, I would quit my job. And so I realized, you know what, I need to go out and just create something. Someone had some email marketing software at that time that was
Okay.
like cutting edge.
Yeah.
Businesses didn't have email software at that time.
Sure.
It was unless you were like a big company. And so I went out to restaurants. I went door to door and said, "Hey, I'll make your slowest day your busiest day." And if you remember 2008, businesses were shutting down everywhere.
Yeah.
This was almost as scary as COVID, almost as scary. Like for
Not a great time to start a business.
mentally, yeah, that's what I thought. It ended up actually playing in my favor, but yeah. So I went door to door and I got a bunch of clients and
Yeah.
I helped them collect emails, and then from there I sent out emails for them. But I realized right away, this is something that are going to be able to solve, and
Sure.
it's not going to be a long term play. So I started adding other services. I became a full agency. A lot of people aim to do is like, man, I want to be all things to all people. And I was trying to do that.
Haven't met an agency in years that hasn't said they're a full service agency.
Yep, exactly. And so I was trying to be all things to all people. We were doing car washes, we were doing tire
Mm.
shops, furniture stores, sport venues, like we were doing everything. And we had a decent sized team. And it just got to the point where it was very clear that we weren't going to be able to grow unless we niched down. Like I couldn't operationally grow anymore because every time I brought in a new client, it was a new operational system that we had to learn. And then that created bandwidth issues with the team, which means I had to hire more, which means our cost of creating anything just kept going up and up and up and up. And so we said, you know what, we're going to niche down into dental. So we'll be all things to the dental industry, but then we just kept niching down. We just kept saying, no, we're not going to do all things. We're just going to get more and more specific to a more
Mhm.
and more specific person. And every time we've done that, we've grown. So we've been on the Inc. 5000 list 2 times.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with that niching down, getting really specific on our product that we offer. And so we're very niche in that way. The other thing that we do is we're really big on culture. So we're a people first culture. We really do put our team first. We try to treat everybody like human beings and be kind and empathetic
Yeah.
and really work with people the best that we can to make work for them. And I'm really big on that. So that once I learned those two things, it's been a rocket ship since then. We just finished right before COVID. I think we did 3 million. The year after COVID, we did 10 million.
Mm.
Last year we did 15 million. We're hoping to get between 25 and 30 million this year in
Right.
ARR. So that's a little bit about our trajectory.
That's great. So let's talk about that. I've got so many questions for you. So let's talk about that product because you mentioned the product you do. You're an agency, so don't you just do whatever the client tells you? Isn't that how agencies work?
Absolutely not. Absolutely
Okay,
not.
tell me more about that, Gary.
Yeah, if you wanna fail in marketing, then have the client give you direction and let them tell you what to do.
Sure.
If they knew what here's what I always tell our team. If they knew what to do, they wouldn't be working with us and they wouldn't need us. And this is one of the reasons that I actually started a really focus on a people first culture was
Mm.
because the clients I was always taught the client's always right and the client always comes first. And we've all
Yep.
heard that before. And it makes sense, right? Because if without a client, you don't have anything. But here's the problem. When you take it literally and you say, okay, whatever the client asks for, we got to figure out how to do it, they don't know what they're asking for. And the analogy I always use when I go to the dentist, I have no idea what I need. I have no idea what I
Right.
want. I just don't wanna be in pain,
Yep.
and I just want my smile to look decent. That's it.
Yep.
And I don't know what goes into that, and if you start letting me how to bond or should I have a filling or a root canal versus an implant, if you let me to start picking and making those decisions for myself, it's probably not gonna go well unless I, like, really educate myself. And even then, I'm still probably just dangerous, right, to myself. So I really rely on the doctor, who's the expert, to tell me, Gary, this is what you need to get the result that you want. And it's no different in dental marketing or any marketing. If you work with tire shops or you work with some other place, some kind of business, they don't know what they don't know, and it's your job to fill that gap. And so that's what I mean by that. It's really about making sure that you're getting the client what they want you got to give them what they want to get them what they need kind of thing. It's a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. That
Right.
that is very true. So you focus on the end result, but then there's a lot of things that you have to bake in to make sure
Yeah.
that that it happens so that they're successful.
It makes sense because I've experienced this in hiring marketing agencies over the years for our agency. And it was very frustrating because I go to these places and I'd say, okay, so we need to attract more customers. And they're like, great, what's your strategy? What are you doing? Like, we're doing nothing. And they were like, okay, do you have a campaign or something that, that we can look at? And I was like, no. And they were like, okay, tell me who the customer is, how you want us to contact them, how you want the process to go, and all these things. And I was like, no, I'm looking for you. I'm not a marketer. I'm looking for you to tell me what they were doing. And I'm not kidding, Gary. I ran into this with so many agencies. So then I thought, okay, the problem that I'm having is that I'm talking to people that are not used to working with professional services agencies. These are product places. So I went to the places that were experts in professional services. Same crap. Same thing. They were a little better because they were like, you could do this. And I was like, could I or should I do this thing? And so I constantly ran into that. Is that something you've seen as a differentiator for you in the work that you're doing when you step
100%.
into these things?
It's very tempting when you have somebody who has 2,000 locations come to you and say, "Hey, if you change your business model, we can work together." And I'm like, "Yeah, we can, but we've already tried that business model and it doesn't work and it's not going to give you the best outcome." So you kind of have to
Yeah.
hold to your guns.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing is because what I've found in our agency, because we are very much that type of agency. So anytime I'm onboarding people new to our company, I'm letting them know like we're an agency with an opinion. Now, those opinions might be weakly held, but we do have opinions. So if a client shows up and says, I want a custom app, our first question is be why do you want an app? Not what do you want it to do? And once we dive into there, those are customers that last with us for a very long time. We've had customers for 6, 7 years, which is unheard of in our space.
Same. Yeah.
And the thing that I've learned is that it's really scary, obviously, right? Because you got to make payroll. Scary, like you've got to pay the bills, you got to pay rent, you got to pay the internet costs, you got to pay for the tools that you're using. And so somebody standing there in front of you saying, "Hey, I'll give you money to do this thing I want you to do," is very tempting to just take it, right? But I can see that people that don't have that experience with building agencies over and over again are going to look at that and take it and go the same route that you and I both did. Because I did the same thing early on. I was like, whatever you got, man.
Yeah.
You want a
I'll do
website?
anything.
You want
Yeah.
HTML emails? I'll do that thing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I
I
don't
did
care.
fax marketing. I did fax marketing at one
Yeah,
time. I think I
there you
broke a
go.
bunch of federal laws doing that, but yeah, like I literally did fax marketing at one
Yeah.
point.
And so, my advice to people out there to shares is like, yeah, you're going to make mistakes in the beginning. And because it is not just about who you are as a brand and how big you are, but it's the confidence that you have, it's the experience that you have, and it's the process that you have. Because I think that's probably one of the things that is very different that your clients experience when they're working with you is that you probably have a pretty substantial onboarding process and like how you get them in, which is something you
Yeah,
never
and
have
they don't
early on,
and a lot of
right?
times they don't like it. A lot of times
Yeah,
they're like, "Oh, I
right,
don't wanna
right,
do that, and I wanna
right,
do it this way, or I want
right,
you to break your process for us," and I'm
right.
just like, "We're
Yep.
probably not." I don't tell them, but our team and we're getting better and better at this.
Yeah.
We're not definitely not where we should be, but it's like you gotta hold to your guns and say, "Hey, no, this is the way that we're gonna get the results that you want." We just had a client, bigger client, they probably do, man, $50,000 a month, so what is that in ARR? About $600,000 a year in ARR, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to change your business model for us." And we just had to tell them politely, like, we're probably
Yeah.
not the best option for you if that's the way
Yep.
you want to go. It's
Yep.
hard to do. It's hard to say, but over time, it pays dividends. There's a reason that the big companies out there are the big companies, and it's because they have a process and a system
Yeah.
that's predictable and and scalable.
Yep.
And if you want to grow, that's what you have to do. Now, when you first start out, if you're like, "Well, I don't know what to build my system around," then just say yes to everything and go learn. You're getting paid to learn. And you'll attract that level of customer as well, who wants to control everything, who wants to have the 2 cents. And that's great for you at the beginning, but over time, you have to start figuring out use this system. It's a three-step system. And because people ask me all the time, "What should I do?" And I'm like, "Kind of
Right.
depends where you're at." So step number 1 is first you have to become the technician. You have to become good at something. And if you're not good at something, then it's really hard to grow an agency or anything like that. There's exceptions to the rule, but that's typically what happens. I became really good at dental marketing and getting the phones to ring for dental marketing offices. So that's the technician. Then there's the entrepreneur phase. And the entrepreneur phase is where you figure out how to use that skill to make money and to grow and to really leverage things to your advantage.
Mm.
And there's lots of nuances to that. Then the last phase is the leadership phase. And that's where like being a leader and being able to say no and being able to understand saying no actually allows you to say yes to other things in the future. That is huge. And so in each of those steps are different skill sets. So you don't get to just say, "Hey, I'm a great at being a dental marketer and now I'm going to be a great leader at the same time as well." That's not how it works. You actually have to go learn it just like you learned the other skill to market for dentists.
Yeah. It's important because it is a growing thing. And until you kind of get into it and experience it, it's really hard to anticipate. I mean, again, back to your point, I mean, we recently had to say no to a really interesting project, but we couldn't get the client to help define what things were, but they wanted a cost, right? And so my ranges were huge, right? It's like 100,000 to 500,000. They're like, "Can you narrow it down?" I'm like, "No, not until you tell me more about the project." And so eventually they were like, when they sent a very nice email, breakup email, basically saying like, "Because you can't work with us in these extreme conditions." And I'm like, "No, I'm not like, I'm not putting my people into your extreme conditions. Like, it's not going to happen." Because again, back to your point, it's not even just about your reputation with the client. It's about your reputation with the employees on what type of work you're willing to hand over them and say, "Hey, guess what? You're responsible for the success of this piece of crap now."
Yeah, 100%. I've made that mistake so many times.
Yeah.
I've had to ask for forgiveness so many times. And
Yep. Like, sorry.
like, I am so sorry that I let this happen. I didn't see it that way.
Yep.
I've had clients that I've told no to. We don't do it that way, and they were like, "Okay, we'll do it your way." And then they lie to my team.
Right.
Just
Yes.
had this
Yes.
happen recently.
Yep.
Then they lie to my team and go, "Gary said that you guys could do this." And I literally pulled up the recording and said,
Good.
"Here's the call." Like I had somebody tell them that we didn't have to like touch their web, and they're like, "Gary didn't say we had to touch. You were going
Yeah.
to rebuild our
Yeah.
website." And I was like, "I have it. I record all my calls. Just read it." So
Yeah.
I went back, pulled it up, showed it to him.
That's great. And they're
It's
like, "Oh,
yeah, and then I
yeah,
had to
that
remind the team. That's why the quote "buyers are liars" are so true.
yeah,
And I
sure.
don't think it's that people want to lie; it's that people
Yep.
have selective hearing.
Yep, they do. Yeah. And that I mean, that a couple of years ago, same thing happened to us. We signed a contract and all the specifications and things mapped out. And then miraculously, about 30 days in, a new document appeared that they said they had shared with us, showed up with more requirements. And no, I've never seen this before in my life. And again, to your point, these were great people. I really enjoyed working with them. They were fantastic. But again, back to what we started with was they don't know what they're doing. They're hiring us, and so we, in a way, we have to protect them from themselves in doing this. And that's how I hire people, right? A plumber or anybody who's doing a service for me. Back to your point about the dentist, right? I don't want to go in and be like, "Okay, it looks like I need a crown." And, or my 6-year-old, he's in Krav Maga or whatever, the Israel fighting technique classes, and he wants to break boards. And they're like, "We can't just start by breaking boards."
That's where I'd like to start too. I would just walk in. I just want to headbutt a board and
Just
break
want
it.
to break
Yeah, that's such a boy, right? Such a boy thing.
Yep.
I just want to break this board. That's all I care about.
That's teach you how to break the board. And so they're like, "No, you have to." And it was a master class in watching the instructor show him why that wasn't the right way to do it and why building the skills to get there it was really inspirational. And I was like typing notes on my phone. I'm like, I'm going to use this next time with
Yeah, I'm
some
horrible.
clients.
So I would have been like, "Go for it, bro."
Yeah. I'm
Just
like, do you need a job?
watched him wreck his hand. It's like, "Okay, now do you wanna learn the way to actually do it?" But that
Yeah,
would be
exactly.
fun.
That's how I learned most things. That's why I've got so many scars. My right leg is made out of wood. So for when you got to a certain size, let's say kind of past the, I don't know, the where the boutique agency kind of size and you started growing into the larger size. When did you start looking at like other professional services to help you? Did you so like CPAs, accounting, all that stuff, did that all come at once or was it pieced out over time? Did you find that you needed to add these things?
So, like HR,
Yeah.
finance, all the things that no
All the
entrepreneur
boring
wants to deal with,
stuff.
right? Yeah, all
Yeah.
the boring stuff that you're like, "Wait, I have to deal with this?"
Yeah.
So, I had something interesting happen to us. We were at about $3 million a year, and we were kinda just coasting along, and then COVID hit, and we dropped by 75%. Revenue dropped by 75%. Most dentist offices closed, and we almost had to shut down. We didn't. We took out a bunch of loans. We didn't lay anybody off. And I basically told the team, "Hey, look, we're either gonna grow
Mm.
during this time and massive growth, or we're gonna go out of business." And I made a massive gamble. And during that time, I learned about a lot about being vulnerable and asking for help. And before I would never have done that. And so but I had no choice at this point. So I
Yeah.
just said, "Hey, team, here's where we're at, and this is what we're doing. Here's our runway. Here's our burn rate, and let's see what happens to see if the economy turns back." And I could do that at that time and not be scared that people were going to quit and stuff because no one was hiring.
Right.
Like there
Right.
was nowhere to go. People were like, "Oh, we're on the boat with you. Let's see what happens."
Yep.
And the results taught me a lot. And one of the things it taught me was it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to be vulnerable and say you don't know things. And it's
Yeah.
every business has their flaws. And because before that, I was scared to ask people for help because I didn't want them to see the dumpster fire that was my business
For sure.
and that I had no idea what was going on. And I kind of had that switch in my brain that I went from one thing to another thing where it was like I'm not going to ask for help to now I'm only going to ask for help and I'm not
Yeah.
going to do the things I don't know how to do. And so I had a lot of people around me show up and help in different ways. We built our HR and we grew, so we 5x very quickly. So we brought all the things in. So all the
Yeah.
things you just said all came in at the same time
Okay.
because we had to legal, HR, all of that. So yeah, we had to learn a lot about that quickly. I wish I would have asked for help earlier.
Yeah.
And my best advice to people is just as you start to grow and you have a little bit of money to spend on these kind of things, just interview people and ask them questions.
Yeah.
And that's like you kind of have to go through and you kind of have to learn it. And you have to learn enough to know that people aren't burning you.
Yeah.
And but it's not fun. HR is never going to be fun. Finances isn't fun. It's just spreadsheets basically.
Yep.
Um,
Taxes and all that.
taxes, legal's never fun. It's literally well, like
Yeah.
legal drives me nuts. It makes me that's the side of the business that makes me not want to be in business. So you just yeah, you just yeah. Anyways,
That to that point, Gary, the idea of kind of as you're starting the business and you're dreaming about these big things, these are the sorts of realities that happen, right? And becomes you against yourself more than it's you against the world, right? Because you've got this idea of what good looks like in your head. And but you have such a hard time explaining it to people. And that's one of the things that was difficult for me because I grew up in agency world. I worked for a lot of agencies before I started my own. And all those owners all had a very scarcity mindset. So they wouldn't ask for help because not because they didn't want people to see what a dumpster fire is. They don't want people to things. They don't want people to
ah,
steal their
yeah, I
clients
used to think that way too.
or
Yeah.
steal their employees. So tell me about how you kind of overcame that mindset. Was there a specific incident or did it just wear down on you over time?
Yeah, no, I mean, it was definitely COVID. So
Okay.
before it was like, I can't share our secret sauce. I don't want people to know what we're doing. And I realized right away during COVID, I was like, okay, this is a unique situation. No one's ever been through a pandemic before. So the one thing I've learned about being in situations like that is I can become the expert very quickly. And I'm competing to be the number one person in anything. You can do it really quickly because it's a
Yeah.
unique situation. And so I learned that in the dental industry that hey, if I niche down into dental, I can become a dental marketing expert fairly quickly and have a small pool of competition. And it was the same, I saw the same thing in the pandemic. So for me, I instantly was able to push against all my normal feelings of scarcity
Mm,
and not being vulnerable and all those things. And the risk reward was just so big on it that I was just like, I'm going to do it. I don't
Yeah.
care. So I
Yeah.
just started talking about everything and on social media. So as an example, I had some people as we grew, we had to put in systems and they'd go to Glassdoor and say, Gary ruined my life and da da da.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody
And
goes to the glass door for a positive thing, right?
yeah, so I started taking those and I started posting them on social media and just being like, hey, this is like a really horrible review about me. Some of it's actually true, some of it's not, some of it I fixed. And I just started going through and just being like
Yeah.
open and talking about everything all the time. And it was just like so empowering and so
Yeah.
uplifting.
Yeah.
And I
Just
also
own it.
realized that everybody loved it. People were like, wow, this is awesome. This is so cool that you're doing this. So I just doubled down, tripled down, and it's been great. I don't have my team coming going, how does Gary think? It's like, bro,
Yeah. Just
for
follow him on TikTok.
yeah, I'm like, I talk for 5, 6 hours a day on podcast.
Yeah.
I post 3, 4, 5 videos a day, short form. I post
Yeah.
2 or 3 long written things every single day, and it's just how I think. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not out there, like, curating the perfect message.
Right.
Here you go. And I'm
Yeah.
recording in batches, and so if you wanna know how I think, it's all out there. If you like it, great, and if you don't like it, that's fine too. The other thing is this: the world is abundant. There's literally unlimited amounts of opportunity all
Yeah.
around us.
There is.
The hard part the hard part is not we're not gonna die of starvation in the marketing industry. We're gonna die from indigestion because we have too many opportunities.
Mm.
And if the second you realize that, absolutely changes your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And just as an aside, what the one thing I found about being that vulnerability is that is attracted a higher quality employees. Like, so me doing the show, they're like, oh, that's the president and he has a podcast. He wrote a book. He did this and that. It's a differentiator. So when I'm trying to get like a really talented person to join the team, that's been a differentiator, be that vulnerability. The vulnerability has worked really well in building better, deeper relationships with my clients. So actually become friends with them and they follow my content and they listen to the things they buy my book and but that's the thing is that early on that insecurity consumes you and you feel like, no, I've got to stay closed off. I've got to maintain, to your point, I have this personal brand out there.
Yeah, and I think that comes from the mindset around competition. So
Yeah.
when I
Sure.
learned this, it was so freeing. So we're not playing a basketball game, right? So I grew up playing basketball, and I was really competitive. And I love people like quotes like Bill Russell. I hate losing more than I love winning, and stuff like that. But if you think of business in a static sense like that, or in a finite game like basketball or Monopoly, you're really going to mess yourself up because
Yeah.
you're not actually competing against anybody in business. There is no scoreboard that says this is the best business.
Yeah.
Like, is my business better than your business? Like, it's
Right. How would
subjective.
you quantify that?
Yeah. It's like, is my beard better than your beard? Like, it's
Right.
subjective, right? Or my
Totally.
shirt is better than your shirt.
Yep.
It's whatever you think it is, that is true. It's like, oh, okay. So you're actually competing against and
Right.
you're playing an infinite game
Yep.
against yourself. And it
Yep.
goes on forever and it will go on after you leave as well. So that's one of the things that I learned is that I'm just competing against myself. I'm just trying to get 1% better. Whatever anybody else does, that's great. And that's not to say don't watch the market and see what
Sure.
people are doing out there and all those kind of things.
Yep.
Of course, pay attention to that. But once you believe in something and you say, this is what we're doing, then go full bore for it and try to knock it out of the park and just make yourself better along the way. And you will win. You will
Yep.
keep winning. And once that momentum starts, boy, it's sure hard to stop.
Yeah. And that's to your point, forecasting is not reality, but you do need to forecast. You do need to think ahead and be that person, but don't let it consume you to the point of understanding what is real, what's right in front of me, what can I do with what I have right now, and how can I make that into something better every single, like you said, working towards a better 1% every day is fantastic, right? It's like I tell people all the time, right? Like there's no summiting this mountain. It is just a climb. That's what
Yep.
we're doing. There's no summit. There's no prize at the top, like you said, to say like I've won in business. I win business. Like
Yeah.
this
Simply,
is
no, there is no, yeah, you don't get anything like that. Even the ones that say those people who email you and say you're going to be the top 30 of 30
right,
entrepreneurs if you pay us
right.
$5,000. Even that's not real, right?
No,
So there's a
no.
couple things that I use. So the 1% a day.
Yeah,
So I just want to keep getting better every single day. I don't need massive growth. I need 1% a day. So that helps me mentally, which compounds and turns into massive growth over time. The other thing is I like to every year do something that scares them substantially, scares me every single year. That has helped me grow more than anything else.
that's really smart. And honestly, like I've been following a similar tactic. Like writing a book was really scary to do. It was really nerve wracking. And I thought, again, I had all the same self doubts that anybody has starting anything is like, who's going to care? Like nobody cares. Why bother doing this? But I just kept going. And the fun thing is that the book launch party, so many people congratulated me on the accomplishment. Like it wasn't that they had read the book. It
Yeah.
wasn't that they were interested, that they thought the book cover was cute or anything, but they were just impressed by sticking with it was like
Yep.
the thing with
100%.
them. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing that I think I've realized earlier. I wish I would have realized when I was younger is
Yep.
that just consistency will always win. And again, even if you have ups and downs, if you stay consistent, you will still constantly grow. Just growth will happen, but you have to maintain consistency.
100%. Yeah, so I'll share a cool so and
Yeah.
during COVID, I before COVID, I didn't post on social media at all. So I had to put myself out there and start posting on social media. So I made a rule with myself. I was going to post 3 times a day, every single day, videos, no matter what, even if I had nothing to say. And that was way outside of my comfort zone. Then the next year, I said, okay, now I've done that and I've learned how to grow on social media and get people's attention. Now I want to do a podcast. Had no idea how to do a podcast and way outside of my comfort zone. What am I going to talk about every day? Who am I going to bring on? Are people even going to want to talk to me? Or even is anybody even going to listen? And I did that. And
Mhm.
that was because I learned how to post online. And then from there, I did an in person event, which was way outside of my comfort zone. I didn't want to do an in person event, which led to doing 3 this year, which is going to lead to more next year, which is going to lead to eventually I'm going to have 1,000 people sitting in a room in an event. How did I do that? I had no idea how to do any of that. But it all started with me just saying, I'm going to post on social media 3 times a day. And it's really uncomfortable. And I feel stupid. And I
Yep.
know everybody's going to think I'm stupid.
Yep.
All those thoughts went through my head. And I just said, I don't care.
Yep.
And
Just
I
gotta.
know we say that, right? We all say, I
Yep.
don't care what people think. Oh, we do.
We do.
We really do deep
Yep.
down. It's
Yep.
such a hard thing to overcome
Yeah.
of saying really not caring what anybody thinks. And I'm just going to go learn something new and risk being looking stupid.
Yeah. It's having those goals that you see what you're working towards. You've got it's illuminated for you. I've heard you talk about like going through a tunnel before, right? And seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's for me. Like people ask, like, how do you find the time to do these things? And I was like, well, my goals don't allow me to binge watch a lot of Netflix
Yeah, I don't.
or to play video games as much as I would like to, or things like that, because my goals won't allow me. It's not to say, to your point, it's not to say like I get super excited about posting all these things or putting myself out there as much, but these are the only ways to achieve the goals that I want to achieve. So nobody's coming to save you, man. Like nobody's pushing you through that tunnel on your own. Tell me a little bit more about your philosophy on the light at the end of the tunnel.
I think the light at the end of the tunnel is how you avoid burnout. So for
Yeah.
me, I
Yeah.
have to do new things. I don't, if you put me in a job and just said stay there and do that job over and over again, I would burn out pretty quickly. And so I have to have a light at the end of the tunnel. I have to be able to see where am I going? What am I doing? And every
Yeah.
time I've lost that light at the end of the tunnel of where I'm moving towards, I get burnt out really quickly.
Yep.
But if I keep growing and I keep adding things and I keep myself and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel where this is taking me and leading to the next thing, and not only do I not burn out, people are like, Gary, your energy is not only infectious, but it's crazy. Like, how do you do this? Are you on drugs or something? And
Right.
it's like,
Right.
because it's constant. It's
Yeah.
24/7. I wake
Yeah.
up like this
Yeah.
and I love it. Like
Yeah.
how I don't know how I don't understand how anybody else lives. Like
Yeah.
I can
Right.
only understand the way I live, and I
Right.
just don't. I I don't know how else to describe it besides that. It's just a massive amount of energy all the time and excitement all the time.
Yeah. And again, like I attribute it similarly in metaphor to an athlete, right? Is that you got to get your reps in every day in order to get good at something. And in the beginning, it is going to feel weird and whatever. And people talk about imposter syndrome, which is also just a way of being new at something. And everybody feels weird when they're new at something, right? But you got to get your reps in. And if you get your reps in and you commit to a certain amount of time, that expertise and that comfortability just comes along with it.
Yeah.
To me, yeah, what people see, right? It's like they talk about overnight success that took 20 years.
Yep.
That's how I feel. Like, and maybe in 20 years, like I'll have like a New York Times bestseller or something, and they'll be like, "Where'd this guy come from?" And it's like, "I've been here, man. I've been
Percent.
here."
Yeah, I'm starting right now. I just launched like a whole like coffee review thing I'm doing on YouTube.
Oh, fun.
People are like, "Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I like
Yeah,
coffee,
I like coffee.
a and it's content." Like, I don't know what's gonna come. I have no idea what it's gonna turn into. Guarantee you it's gonna turn into something though, because
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to make it
yep,
better and better and
yep,
better, 1% every day, learn a little bit more,
yeah,
and just that's just the way my brain works,
yeah,
yeah, the thing that's interesting, you mentioned the athlete. The thing
yeah.
that's interesting about the athlete is getting reps in so they can go win the game. But then
Sure.
when they're done winning the game and they win the championship, then they have to go out and figure out how to live life now. I think for the entrepreneur is
A good
for the
point.
entrepreneur, what's cool is like my reps and my what I'm doing is my life.
Yeah,
Like I'm getting my
right.
reps in my life.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for that end trophy. I'm living my trophy, if
It's a
that
great
sense.
perspective, Gary. Yeah, yeah. And that's what my advice has always been to people is again, it's consistency. Like when I started the podcast, like I was like, I'm going to do this for a year. I'm not going to do it for 7 episodes. I'm going to do it for a year. When I did the YouTube channel, I'm going to do this for 2 years. And then I'm going to look back and see what happens with these things. And so I think when I'm talking to people about these goals, it's a very different sort of situation because they're like, well, I just want to put something out and see if people like it. I'm like, you should put out
How it
50
works.
things and then see if somebody likes it because that's how the world actually works. But people, again, back to my point about you've got to have the right mindset to understand that the only way to get to where you want to go is to that consistency. That's why all colleges take 4 years because it has a program that lasts 4 years to get you to an exact point that they've all determined that within 4 years you are capable of having this degree or whatever the case may be. There is systems for these things, but yeah, to your point, sometimes you got to just create your own system. I love like the Ferriss 4 Hour Work Weeks and all those books. They're great, but they're not for everybody.
Not for me.
Um,
I would just go start more businesses.
right,
And then now
exactly. And all of a
I'd
sudden,
have 40, I'd have
yeah, you had a
20
10.
hour work week job.
Right, exactly. I would be the same way. And so again, like I think there's value in those types of things, but you also have to realize that those things are not there. They're there. They should be looked at as ways to inspire you, not Bibles to live by.
Yeah, and you have to decide what you want. I think a lot of
Yeah,
people, especially young people, lack so much self awareness that they actually don't know what they want. If you don't know what makes you
right.
happy and what you enjoy to do, you're going to struggle
Yeah,
at everything, and you're going to blame everybody else. But
yeah,
until you say, you know what, it's my job to figure out what makes me happy, and then I want to go do that. That's where it's at. And everybody thinks it's the goal, it's the destination. It's not. It's the
yeah,
direction. Again,
right,
it's your whole life. It's not the trophy, it's
right.
the whole life that you're living, and people
Exactly.
struggle with that. I
They
struggle
do.
with it for a long time.
Yeah. And I think again, you get to a certain level of experiences, you got to put yourself out there because that's the only way you pick up those experiences. Like you said, doing something that scares you is a great way to test and see what your limits are and see what you never knew how far you could actually take things. Right. So it's not about necessarily jumping out of an airplane, but it could be walking up to that important person at a networking event and striking up a conversation with them. That could be very scary. Right. To me, it is about testing your limits and finding those things. So I think it's super important. Gary, I could talk to you all day, but I know you've got to get back to running your business. So if I want to know more about the work you do and the things that you are up to, where's a great place? Where are you most active? Where's a great place to follow you and find out more?
Yeah, my company, if you're in the dental industry, you can find me at SMC National,
Yep.
and we're happy to help you out. But if you're not in the dental industry, more than likely you're listening to this, you're probably not in the dental industry, then go to my social media, the Gary Bird, and I post just stuff that I like to talk about and stuff that I'm doing on there. So if it's helpful or inspirational or whatever, I'm happy to help with that. And then also I have a free mastermind that I host for marketing agencies. Don't make any money off of it. I don't like it's just something that I do on the side. I do it once a week and we have a whole Discord built around it. So if you want help with your agency, I'm happy to help. And that's the way that I give back because I have a lot of people who are like, help me build my agency. And it just
Right.
got too much. So I was like, I'm going to build out a whole structure where I can still help people, not charge them anything, and still be a help to others.
Yeah. Put some constraints around it. Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I'll have links to all those things in the descriptions below. So make sure you check them out if you find them interesting. Gary, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I always value our conversations and
100%. This
and
is really good.
and I appreciate you and the work you do. It's fantastic and inspirational. So thank you for that.
Back to you. Back to
All right.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right, cool. All right, everyone. So thank you to Gary for joining us. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch and listen to the show. Remember, you can get your copy of the Little Book of Networking. It is available on Amazon and going to unashamedly spam and promote this book to everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. I appreciate all of you, and we'll see you next time.